With the NFL draft on the way this month, it's time for me to make my first official mock draft. I'm not doing trades for this mock draft. I plan on doing that in the future just before the NFL draft happens. It's just too hard to predict the trades at this point. So let's dive into the mock draft at hand, starting off with the number 1 pick. But before I decide who I'm going to pick at number 1, because I know it's extremely hotly debated right now, make sure you guys go and subscribe to Couch Football. I'm here to give you guys good football advice throughout the NFL season and offseason, of course. But with that being said, let's talk about the number 1 pick. I am going with Fernando Mendoza, of course, as everybody is. He is the obvious number 1 pick, Heisman winner, national champion. He just had his pro day and looked really good. Looked like he put on about 15 pounds of muscle. Obviously, with Kirk Cousins signing with the Raiders today, it kind of makes things interesting. Is Mendoza going to start right away? I'm not 100% sure. I believe he will because he's the number 1 overall pick. Typically, a number 1 overall pick is expected to start. So it makes too much sense for Mendoza to start. Kirk Cousins is on the downslope, coming off that Achilles injury from a year and a half ago, whatever that was. I'm not totally sold that he's going to go in and steal Mendoza's job, basically. Now on to the actual start of the NFL draft here at number 2. I'm going with the basic, obvious pick, in my opinion, and Arvell Reese. Now, Reese is more of a risky prospect as he hasn't really played edge in college. I mean, a little bit, of course, but he is a raw prospect with extremely high ceiling, great athletic traits, and the Jets are swinging big with this one. I am not totally certain that they're picking Reese here, but I believe it's the most likely outcome. There's other options like David Bailey, maybe Sonny Styles, but I just don't see them drafting a linebacker at 2, even though he is extremely athletic and talented. But regardless, I believe Reese is going to start at outside linebacker right away and then move to edge slowly. They're going to kind of moonlight him, similar to Travis Hunter in a way. Obviously, Reese isn't playing both sides, but I'm talking about Reese is going to play 2 positions at once, starting primarily outside linebacker, getting him comfortable within the system. And once you feel more comfortable with Reese at outside linebacker, then you can start to get more creative and put him on the edge increasingly throughout the season. On to 3rd overall, I'm going with David Bailey for the Cardinals here. I know they definitely need an offensive lineman here. However, I'm not a huge fan of this lineman class. I like the class in terms of like first round talent, but I think pick 3 is a little rich for Francis Mauigoa and Monroe Freeling, especially because he's a bit raw of a prospect. I think David Bailey is going to come in and produce right away for the Cardinals. He's just a baller, great football player, good athlete. Can't go wrong with Bailey, even though you probably need an offensive lineman. Hopefully one falls to them at pick 34 is the ideal situation with that. Unless they want a quarterback, then they'll have to trade up from 34 likely into the late first round. On to pick number 4, I'm going with Jeremiah Love. I don't think it's an obvious pick to go with Love here outside of the fact that he is like a blue chip prospect, but Love will elevate the Titans offense in ways that no other player can at this pick in the draft. He will help in the passing game. I mean, he can pass block. He can catch out of the backfield very well. And I'm not even mentioning the fact that he's a home run threat every time he touches the ball. He's just a great running back overall. Can't go wrong here. Obviously, running back isn't a premium position, but it's more important to help Cam Ward because, of course, quarterback's a premium position. Let's help out that position by drafting the best player in the draft. At pick 5, I'm going Sonny Styles. Once again, another pretty obvious pick. However, I think it just matches too well. I know they signed Tremaine Edmonds in free agency. However, Sonny Styles is one of the top players in the draft. Great athlete. You can even play him on edge a little bit as well. Just a nice versatile chess piece that will be a stud right away. And with Tremaine Edmonds in that linebacking room, it gives them that freedom to play him as a versatile chess piece a little bit more so. And I think it's important to elevate their defense. Of course, their defensive line's really good, and their secondary's kind of improving in a way. I think it's a little rich to go corner here. And Caleb Downs is a little bit rich to go pick 5. So I believe Sonny Styles is the best option at this pick. And hopefully later down the board, they can go with a defensive back. Now pick 6, the Browns get a dream opportunity and select Francis Mauigoa. Great offensive lineman, probably the best offensive lineman in the draft. There's arm length question marks. However, I don't think it matters. I don't think it matters that much. And Mauigoa is a good football player. I want to draft good football players. I don't really want to worry about, is his size, is his athleticism going to be enough in the NFL? Of course, that definitely helps your upside. But drafting good football players is extremely, extremely important. And I believe the Browns are one great draft class away from being a true contender, because we've seen last draft, they knocked it out of the park. So just with one more draft class, I believe that the Browns can truly become a playoff contender. Another dream scenario here, Carnell Tate makes it to the Commanders. I believe if Love made it the Commanders, I think they would rather have him over Tate. However, Tate's an amazing option here because they definitely need to get some young talent on this offense next to Jaden Daniels to build that long-term connection on offense. And Carnell Tate's the most reliable wide receiver to take in this draft class. He's from Ohio State. I trust the Ohio State receivers more so than any other school. So Carnell Tate's just the obvious pick here, especially with an aging Terry McLaurin, and now Deebo Samuel is out of the house. So it's important to surround your stud quarterback with weapons. Now on to pick 8. I'm going with Ruben Bain. Great pick here for the Saints. Just finding more young talent for this defense is important because this defense is aging. Of course, Demario Davis, Cam Jordan, the obvious veteran players on that defense. It's important to replace them with young, talented players, especially since that offense started to look promising. If Tate made it to this pick, they might rather go with that route and surround their young quarterback with a weapon. But Ruben Bain's another great option. Another guy with some arm length question marks, similar to Mauigoa. Of course, Bain being a defensive player, I don't think it matters too much. I think he's actually very versatile. He can play on the edge. He can play as a defensive tackle. He would be also great in the stunt game, in my opinion, as well. Pick 9's a bit of a tough one because Trent McDuffie was traded from the Chiefs, so they obviously have that extra first-round pick. The real question is, are they going to go DB with their first pick or their second pick? I decided to go with the best cornerback on the board and in the draft with Mansour Delane. I feel like it's the smart move to replace McDuffie. Obviously, that's a big gaping hole. You have to find a defensive back in this draft, especially since I didn't really sign anybody notable in the secondary. Caleb Downs is another option, but since Trent McDuffie's a corner, I think it's important to just replace him with a corner, not risk having cornerback issues, especially in the AFC. Another dream pick, of course, here, Caleb Downs of the Bengals. Every time I do a mock draft, it seems like it always ends up happening. It makes too much sense. The Bengals need a true commander on the defense. Caleb Downs is just that. He can call the plays. He can play in the box. He can play in 2 safety sets, maybe even single high. It's kind of a question mark right now. He also can blitz. He's just a versatile player that is going to be an absolute baller right away. Of course, there's some knee issues, so it more so depends on which teams deem that ACL, degenerative ACL, as a problem and who doesn't. But I believe that the Bengals draft him regardless of the risks and shoot for the stars. Pick 11, we have the second wide receiver off the board with Mekhi Lemon going to the Dolphins. Of course, the Dolphins got rid of every single wide receiver in the room with getting rid of Tyreek Hill and trading away Jalen Waddle for an absolute load of picks. It's great for the rebuild, not great for Malik Willis. So we have to replace him with a stud wide receiver in Mekhi Lemon. A lot of people think he's the wide receiver 1 in the class. I have him as the wide receiver 3, more so because of the potential athletic limitations, and his size is a little bit of a question mark, but that's me being picky. I think Lemon will be great in this offense, and Malik Willis will pepper him with targets. 12, I'm going with Jermod McCoy. He kind of has started to fall a little bit in these drafts, but now after his great performance at his pro day with his sub 4.4 40 time, and I can't even remember what the vertical was, but it was a really good vertical time and broad jump. McCoy has solidified himself, in my opinion, as a top 16 pick, so top half of the first round. It makes too much sense for McCoy to go to the Cowboys, and they desperately need help in that secondary. I think their defensive line's serviceable right now, but their secondary seriously needs work because that offense can't be relied upon to score like 40-plus points a game, even though it's very entertaining. Now with pick 13, I'm going with Monroe Freeling for the Rams. This is kind of the first debatable pick, in my opinion, in terms of like, does this make a lot of sense for the Rams? I believe it does. Freeling is a project offensive lineman with extremely high upside. He doesn't feel the pressure to start right away at left tackle with some old veteran tackles with the Rams. However, he might be able to play right away at guard, at right tackle, left tackle, wherever they need him to play. He's going to be an amazing backup as a rookie and will take over in his second season for sure. Wide receiver could make sense here. I think Mekhi Lemon would be the best option for them here. Unfortunately, he's not on the board, so I think they go towards protecting Matthew Stafford with selecting Monroe Freeling. Going with another offensive lineman in Spencer Fano. He's fallen a bit. I used to have him actually like pick 3, as high as pick 3, mainly because of the short arms issue. I'm not totally buying it. Regardless, if there is a problem there, he can be an elite center. And of course, they just lost their elite center in Tyler Linderbaum to the Raiders. So it makes a ton of sense for them to select Fano, and he can play at tackle or center. Will be a great option either way, I think. Bit of a spicy pick here with Kenyon Sadiq to the Bucks. Obviously, they re-signed Cade Otton. That's kind of the big notable thing in free agency for them at the tight end position, of course. But Kenyon Sadiq is a different playmaker. He's a versatile chess piece. He can play outside, inline, wherever you want him to play, really. And Sadiq is going to elevate that offense. The offense greatly struggled last season, of course, with Baker Mayfield at the helm. They have promising talent in Nick Buka and Chris Godwin. Of course, he's aging, but he's still a really good player. Jalen McMillan at wide receiver. But at tight end, is Cade Otton really a great tight end? I'm not buying it. I believe they look to elevate that offense to the next level with Sadiq. Another playmaker is off the board here with Jordan Tyson being selected to the Jets at pick 16. It makes too much sense to me with Garrett Wilson possibly being traded at some point, his injury concerns as of recent, and Jordan Tyson can be a great weapon alongside Wilson if he does stay. Tyson could be a steal. He also could be a bust. I mean, it's truly a boomer bust situation with his insane injury history. However, when he's playing, he's a great football player, great route runner, great hands, and he just provides a lot. Outside of maybe yak ability, that's kind of the main question mark for me. But outside of that, Jordan Tyson's a great football player, and alongside Garrett Wilson, I believe those two could be one of the best wide receiver duos in the league in 2 or 3 years if both Tyson and Wilson can stay healthy. Since you've made it 16 picks, please consider following me on X/Twitter. Here is my account right here, and I'll have a link in the description. I post football content every single day. I reply to a lot of people, and I just love talking about football. So if you guys want to chop it up with me, make sure you guys follow me on X. Of course, subscribe here on Couch Football. I have a TikTok as well, and comment, of course. I love responding to comments, so please help me on this journey as a small content creator. And with that being said, let's get back into the task at hand with pick 17, Caden Proctor. Another questionable pick in a way, just because Proctor is probably not a left tackle and Penei Sewell plays right tackle. Yes, Proctor could probably move inside to guard if need be, but there's rumors that Penei Sewell could be moved to left tackle, and if that's the case, Proctor makes a ton of sense. He's a traitsy guy, and the Lions are known for drafting whoever they truly deem as a good pick. I mean, they went with Jahmyr Gibbs a lot earlier than people expected. Same with Jack Campbell, linebacker. So, to me, it makes a lot of sense to go with Caden Proctor here to improve their offensive line. Now to the Vikings. I'm going with Dylan. No, I'm just kidding. I'm going with Peter Woods. I'm mixing it up. Seems like everybody wants to go with Dylan Thieneman from Oregon. He's a good safety. I'm just not totally buying it. Safety is not as valuable of a position compared to most. And with downs kind of falling to 10, I think that's going to cause other safeties to fall a little bit as well. And I believe Peter Woods is a really good prospect. Kind of had a little bit of a down year with Clemson, but he still produced fairly well. And with the Vikings not having a lot on the roster at D tackle outside of Jalen Redmond, they need to add more depth. And with that being said, I'm also predicting Harrison Smith to come back for another year to kind of just help the Vikings in the secondary for one more year, and then he can finally retire. At pick 19, I'm going with Avion Terrell. I like the pick here. I believe the Panthers need some cornerback help alongside J.C. Horn, and Horn's been injured at many points throughout his career. They need help on offense and defense. I don't really see him going with wide receiver again. I feel like they're always drafting a wide receiver early on in drafts. They got to go with a DB here. I thought about Thieneman as well. Thought about McNeil Warren, but I ultimately landed on Avion Terrell. Of course, he's got hamstring concerns, but I'm not too worried about that. And he's a very talented player with, of course, football in his bloodline, with A.J. Terrell's brother being one of the best corners in the league. Now on to the Cowboys once again. Of course, we had Jermon McCoy at 12. Now we're at 20, and I'm going with Keldrick Falk. He's a project, but he's super young. He's going to be, 20 on draft night, I believe. And he's going to be amazing in the run game right away. And he's got some tools to help in the pass game. He just needs to work on his pass rush arsenal. But he has the athletic ability. And like I said, he's going to be great in the run game right away. So going double on defense to start for the Cowboys in this draft. Now at pick 21, I thought about going Ty Simpson here. I think this is where the Ty Simpson drama truly begins for the most part. But I'm going with Vega Ioane. Something different. Interior offensive lineman that's going to be great right away and provide Aaron Rodgers some protection. Yes, I believe Aaron Rodgers is going to come back. He's one of the best players in this draft class. And just because he's an interior offensive lineman, he does fall to the 20s. And the Steelers start off the McCarthy era with an offensive lineman. I don't think wide receiver's totally off the board after trading for Michael Pittman Jr., but it's definitely down the board in terms of needs now. Now, this could be a trade down spot for the Chargers. Obviously, I'm not doing trades, though, so I'm going with TJ Parker. Unfortunately, with Ioane going to the Steelers, it kind of complicates things for the Chargers. I'm assuming they would be trying to trade up to pass the Steelers if they believe that they are going to go offensive line, because the Chargers need interior offensive linemen badly. Unfortunately, they're not going to be able to get one in the first round here, and instead they're going with TJ Parker. Had a down year with Clemson. Good player with plenty of tools. He's going to be great in the run game right away, similar to Keldrick Falk, basically. But Parker is a little bit older. Now, moving on to the Eagles, we have Caleb Lomu getting drafted. It makes too much sense. Howie Roseman always goes with these trenches players, and with Lane Johnson kind of at the tail end of his career, makes sense to go with Lomu as the replacement option to further protect Jalen Hurts or whatever quarterback they decide to go with, because I guess there's Jalen Hurts drama now. But nevertheless, Caleb Lomu makes a ton of sense here, in my opinion, to replace Lane Johnson. Pick 24, Omar Cooper Jr. to the Browns. I love it. I tweeted about this not too long ago, actually, saying Omar Cooper just makes too much sense to go to the Browns. He can be kind of that do-it-all player. He's fast enough to take the top off a defense. He's got great yards after catch ability. Route running is a little bit of a question mark, but I think he's got better route running than people give him credit for. And he's got reliable hands. He's just a nice, reliable wide receiver. I think he could go even higher than this, but the Browns start off their draft with a bang in Maui Noah and Omar Cooper Jr. Now, with the Bears need some defensive line help. They could go with an edge rusher. Unfortunately, a lot of them have already been drafted, so the board didn't fall necessarily in the way they might have wanted it to go, but Caden McDonald's still on the board, and it might be a bit of a reach here, but they need help on the D-line desperately with aging defensive tackles, and McDonald makes a ton of sense for them to be a run stuffer with good athleticism for his size. Moving on to the Bills. I have them going with C.J. Allen. surprisingly, after getting DJ Moore, this team doesn't really have a lot of needs necessarily. And I believe CJ Allen's just a great overall player with high upside. He's going to be a reliable tackler, which is going to help immensely. He does struggle in the pass game, but he has the athleticism. So over time throughout his career, he has that ability to develop into more of a well-rounded linebacker. After the fall, Dylan Thieneman is finally going to be selected by the San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers need some help in the secondary, and after getting Mike Evans and signing Christian Kirk, wide receiver is not as big of a need now. So Thieneman makes a ton of sense. You're going best player available, and that secondary definitely struggled last year. So Thieneman is the pick. When Ricky Pearsall was drafted, the 49ers didn't really need an offensive weapon necessarily because they had Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk at the time, and George Kittle, of course. So I could totally see him kind of going with that similar route with selecting a wide receiver here, but I opted for the best player available with Thieneman. At pick 28, the Texans upgrade their offensive line, which they have needed to do. They signed David Montgomery in the offseason, which is a great decision. He's going to be a great bruiser in that backfield and take a little heat off of CJ Stroud, along with this pick with Emmanuel Pregnon. Definitely early here. Pregnon's probably more of an early second rounder, but he's a really good player. And it makes a ton of sense for the Texans because, man, they keep trading away all their good offensive linemen. I mean, Titus Howard, Laramie Tunsil were traded away. So Pregnon makes a ton of sense to upgrade that offensive line in general. At pick 29, Akeem Mesidor selected. I'm not a massive fan of Mesidor. I just believe that age is a bit of a concern for me. It took him this long to kind of break out in a way, and I kind of like the higher upside, more developmental prospects compared to Mesidor. But with the Chiefs being a win-now team, of course, with Mahomes and all their studs, it makes a ton of sense to get a NFL-ready defensive end in Mesidor, and he's definitely a lot better of a player than pick 29, but I think due to his age and his late breakout, he's going to fall a little bit in the draft to pick 29. At pick 30, the Dolphins are back on the clock. Going with Mekhi Lemon at pick 11 gives them freedom to go with the best player available on defense, and that is going to be Emmanuel McNeill-Warren. Makes a ton of sense here. I love McNeill-Warren, and they need help in the secondary. Cornerback might make more sense here. However, McNeill-Warren was the best player available on the board, and I wasn't a huge fan of the corners. I love Chris Johnson, but I would prefer him in the early second round if possible. So I just went with the best DB available. Moving on quickly here, Denzel Boston going to New England. Boston to New England. He's a good wide receiver. I have question marks about his ability to separate. Others don't as much, and I'm not really sure how the NFL is going to view that potential concern or problem. But nevertheless, Boston has huge upside potential. He can be that true X wide receiver to target in the red zone. I could see Boston going to the 49ers at 27 even, because he's similar to Mike Evans in a way with his play style as kind of like that big-bodied wide receiver, and can be a great option in the red zone right away. With my last pick, I am going with Colton Hood to the Seahawks. I know there's players on the board like Miller, Simpson, Concepcion that could go in the first round, but I'm not totally buying it. With Simpson, I think he is going to fall a little bit. Concepcion with the potential knee scope question mark also could fall. But this is my draft. I believe Colton Hood can be a great player. Super young, developmental guy with a ton of athleticism. Similar to Tyreek Woolen, who they lost. So this is a great option to replace him. But this is my draft. I hope you guys enjoyed hearing all the football insight. And please make sure you like this video. Subscribe for more content like this from Couch Football. Here to give you guys good football advice throughout the season. Trying to kind of simplify things so that the average person watching on the couch can understand and enjoy my content. Let me know how I did, as this is kind of like my first true video locking in and focusing on this as a potential career option. But that is a wrap for the mock draft, and I will see you guys in the next video.